When the world talks about culture, understand this. It is not talking about culture. It is talking about power. The difference between the African cultures, which have vanished, and the European cultures, which are decaying, is that Europe had the power. And that is the only difference.
Evidence of white supremacy is evident in society through the radical gap between white and non-white individuals in terms of wealth and well-being. The reality of how we think in our own educational institutions, where it is not made necessary for every student to learn about First Nations or Aboriginal studies, and through the ideologies of societies, which are mostly unconscious discrimination that we deal with in our day-to-day lives.
That when we talk about white privilege generally, we don't even have to get as material as better housing or better jobs or higher income, although I think there's plenty of evidence that white folks have advantages in those arenas, both historically, which most people would agree with, but even today. I think it's actually more about the sort of day-to-day subtle psychological advantages that a person who is white has. The idea that as a white person, I'm not going to be presumed incompetent when I'm applying for a job. If anything, I'll be presumed competent until proven otherwise, especially if I'm white and male, and especially if I'm upper middle class and went to the quote unquote right colleges.
Double standards in sports, they exist. In Odo Beckham's GQ interview, he was asked and answered, do you think race plays a part in the double standard you're dealing with? To which he answered, race plays into everything, whether we want to believe it or not. Popovich said it.
We live in a racist country that hasn't figured it out yet.
Especially in the media.
He is extremely, almost crazy competitive.
That is Skip Bayless, host on FS1, discussing Tom Brady. How did he talk about Odell?
If he doesn't get his numbers or his shine, then he's going to go crazy and act out, and he's going to pout.
Bayless on Brady.
He screwed up and he knew it.
No, he didn't.
And he was furious with himself.
Bayless on Odell.
No, bad idea. There's no way I'm going to invest that much money in a diva wide receiver.
But an exchange that took place on the radio yesterday between host David Webb and legal analyst Areva Martin was pretty embarrassing for her.
That's a whole nother long conversation about white privilege and things that you have the privilege of doing that people of color don't have the privilege of.
How do I have the privilege of white privilege?
David, by virtue of being a white male, you have white privilege.
Areva, I hate to break it to you, but you should have been better prepped. I'm black to this. And this is part of the problem with driving a narrative around a construct like white privilege. Privilege is one thing. We're applied wealth, economy, various social factors, but not necessarily determined by color of skin.
The effort, therefore, that I must make to arrive at my identity is mainly in opposition to the white force of the world. Under such a tension, it becomes very difficult. And then, under such a tension, I must repeat, it becomes absolutely necessary to deal with people as people, only as people. Because you cannot spend your life, this is my point, trying to be revenged for historical crimes. If you do that, you will destroy yourself and you will perpetuate the crime.
If someone is drowning, do you stand on the shore and ask what that person, who has more than enough to contend with, what you should do, or out of sense of common decency and humanity, do you reach out to help? People of color challenge racism every day. We've never had a choice. Yet, since we did not build and fortify for centuries a system of white supremacy as American as the Constitution and as old as Plymouth Rock, we alone cannot be expected to undo it. That, white people, is on you and your privilege.